All right, good morning again, everyone, and welcome back to the KSR YouTube channel. Today, the Chevy 2 cranks. I hope. So, Shawn is in town that owns the car. You guys will see him a little bit later in the video. But we've got a few things to finish up on this car, and then we will be getting ready to crank it up. See the work we've done on the charge pipe there. We've got the blow-off valve mounted. Let's see what all we can get done on this thing today. While you're here, please subscribe to the channel. We try to bring you guys a mix of action of building cars, going to the track, helping out Cletus on his stuff whenever we can, and also some fun shenanigans with different car builds, going to the track, racing, some tuning analysis, all kinds of fun stuff that we can maybe help you guys out with on your projects, or you can just learn to try to help a friend with their project that doesn't watch the channel. We'll try to get them to watch the channel too. Yeah, I would certainly appreciate it if they watch the channel too. Let's try and get everybody to watch it. But it's time for me to get to work. Gotta fabricate this other charge pipe. Maybe I'll try to explain some of my process. I've had quite a few people ask me, you know, how I try and do the fabrication stuff and come up with where to cut the pipes and everything before I, to fabricate the stuff, because it takes a little extra thinking, to try and get all this stuff worked out. So maybe that'll help you guys along the way with some pipe fabrication. Not saying it's the right way to do it, but it's the way I do it, and it seems like it's worked out pretty well for me. It's time for me to get to work. So, tubing and pipe fabrication tips. So when it comes to bringing a tube through an area, obviously you've got to, think quite a bit ahead for how the pipes are going to go. All of your clearance considerations you need to take into account. So on this car, we're trying to keep everything back as well as we can, as far as we can. So you can see I kind of brought the pipe back a little bit and then down and then into or out of the turbo. Obviously the airflow is flowing that way. And I guess the biggest tip that I can pass on is to always be thinking and having your next piece in consideration. So down here, the turbo outlet is coming here. So as I started up here at this pipe, because this is solid, so there's no wiggle here, but because we've got a coupler down here, we've got a little bit of wiggle room. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect to get it to line up, like if it was a double V-band, a V-band connection on each end of the pipe. But we're solid with a V-band here. And I made these two, brought this back, and then as I was making this pipe, I was looking at it from this perspective right here, trying to make this flange point straight down at the outlet down there, because I knew if I brought a 90-degree turn up out of the turbo, in some way I would be able to land it on this. Now, once I got them cut close, I had to do just a little tweaking, a lot of measuring. And obviously the more you do something, the better you're gonna get at it. I've been doing this for a long time, so I think I'm okay at it. But the same thing applies to building like headers. If you're building custom headers, you want to make sure that you keep your cuts on the, you're keeping it where it's a full 3-inch circle in our case here. You're not cutting it at a weird angle, so you get, like weird joints and expansions in the internal volume as it goes through the bends and stuff. You don't want to do that. So you've got to think about, you know, how to rotate this. You can see it's nice and smooth there, nice and smooth there, so that it's, you know, perfectly 3-inch round circle all the way from the turbo all the way up to the throttle body. So I've got a 90-degree piece I've already cut. It's actually, I missed this one just a little bit when I shortened it. I didn't trust my tape measure, and I cut it about 1/4 of an inch too short. So I've got that piece to use down in there, coming out of that turbo. So I'm gonna make these pieces over here, and then we'll bring it down and mate to the 90-degree that we've got coming out of the other turbo. Then we'll build us this other charge pipe, and then I've got to build a couple of down pipes so that we can put O2 sensors in, and then figure out how we're going to mount the radiator here, and then we'll be ready to crank this thing up. So I'm going to time lapse me doing this charge pipe. Hopefully it helps you guys out. Maybe you can see my process through the time lapse. All right, so I'm going to get to work, bring you guys along for the ride.
right, well, you guys hopefully could follow along with that process a little bit. One other tip that I thought of while I was doing it, actually a couple of tips. So at each junction of your pipe, and this is especially true with stainless, you do not want any gap when you're TIG welding stuff, especially. Maybe you can get away with it if you're MIG welding and you can just pile some metal in there. But especially with TIG welding, if you have a gap and it's stainless, what's gonna happen is you put the filler in and So where you've got a gap, if your gap is on the bottom side, those pipes are going to pull together. And if you think about it, when you're building a long section of pipe and you have a joint here that pulls and you've got all your other pieces fitted, well, now nothing fits. So you don't want that. So the way around that is make sure there is no gap around the whole thing. And you guys saw I use the belt sander. Just kiss it against the belt sander until I get a nice flat face on it. And I do that with the next pipe and the next pipe and the next pipe. And then I also complete the welds from one end to the other. So I fully weld this joint, tack weld this one. Actually, I tacked this one and then tacked this one. Everything was still close. Came back and fully welded this, fully welded that. And then the idea is that if I need to make any adjustments, I can still do that on just the last piece there instead of having to completely remake everything, because now everything twisted and tweaked and pulled out of the way. So once I got all that fully welded, you saw I did the I bead rolled a little lip on it, so it's got good retention down there. Now it's time to move on to doing the exhaust. Once I get the exhaust done, stick the radiator in the thing, try and get some hoses run to it, and we're going to be cranking this thing up. And that is exciting. You guys probably saw Shawn sanding on the window frame. He's going to be painting around that with some good paint, and then we're going to have a guy come put the windshields in, or the windshield and the rear window. And then once we do that, you know, we'll be able to take it to LS Fest with at least some windows in it. We're not sure which class we're going to run yet, because a lot of them are full, but maybe one of the grudge classes, maybe one of the no time classes. I guess we'll see. If nothing else, maybe we can just do the test and tune, try and figure out something. But we're pretty excited to get this thing to LS Fest and show it all off to everybody. So we are also bringing Soccer Mom to LS Fest, and I know Cletus is bringing a couple of his rides. Maybe we'll all be kind of pitted together and have all of our merch stuff set up. All right, time for me to make some down pipes. Bring you guys along for that action too. Kind of the same process. And you saw me turn the steering wheel a little bit ago. So when it comes to fabbing exhaust pipes, especially when they're around the front tires like this car is here, I've got to swing the tires to make sure that I'm not going to have anything hitting once I start turning the tires, lifting the suspension up, like if the car does a wheelie. Not that you're going to be turning while it's in the air, but I'm at least going to make it clear at ride height plus a couple inches, so if he does have to do some steering, we know it's the exhaust isn't close enough to the tires. But this is getting exciting. See if we can get this exhaust wrapped up enough to get an O2 sensor in it. And this car is eventually going to have kind of a dual mode exhaust system. It'll have some pipes out of the fenders that'll be for race mode, and then we'll put a cap over that for street mode, and then the exhaust will go down through pipes under the car, probably dump out back in front of the rear tires. Something, we'll figure that out later. But to get to LS Fest, we're just going to do kind of the race exhaust. But it's time for me to get to work. Stop talking. Time to cut up some stainless. Well, not too long after I started that time lapse for doing the exhaust, battery went dead. And I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to really get the work done, but We've got us a pipe on the driver's side. See down in there, we got the O2 sensor. So the plan for the street mode on this thing is going to be to cut right in there behind where it goes straight after the O2 sensor. And then we'll do something with a pipe that runs under the car, maybe one of those oval pipes, and do maybe some extra mufflers down by the end. Depends on how loud the thing is with a long tailpipe on it. But I'd hope to get a radiator in this thing, but I'm not so sure we really got time. Shawn's got to get back to his place over in very west panhandle of Florida, and it's pushing 6 o'clock here, and I probably have 3 or 4 hours in radiator modifications before we could even get the thing in the car, and I don't want to rush it and make a mistake. So I think we're going to try and put some fuel to this thing and crank it without a radiator in it. All we need to do is hear it run. Shawn bought this engine from somebody else, supposed to be good. We primed it, it makes oil pressure. So as long as they got everything else right, it should be okay. And like I said, we'll run it for 15, 20, 30 seconds, maybe even a minute, just to see if the alternator's working and see what we can do to make it fire up. But I'm gonna go look over a few other things and see if we can make a decision on cranking this thing real quick. All right, well, moment of truth. See if this thing kicks off. You know what? There's no fuse on the coils. Yeah. Try her again. Still got no power. Pause. All right, let's try this again. Here goes, hopefully something. Yeah, the thing makes great oil pressure. It was sitting there idling at like 50, so. Notice too, it actually holds, like it's holding 40 pounds of fuel pressure or 38 pounds of fuel pressure. Holding a whole lot of fuel pressure without even anything running.
you happen to look at the voltage?
No, it's in the data log though. So we did get a data log. All right, that's freaking exciting. You excited, Shawn?
Yes.
Oh man, that's exciting. So I'm gonna do a little check over in the data log and be back in just a minute. Well, as you guys might imagine, that was pretty exciting for us. It has been a long time with this thing coming together. You can almost kind of see a light starting to brighten at the end of the tunnel. I've got just a couple of sensors I need to go back and calibrate or do something with. I got one reading real wonky, but Shawn went ahead and got around the front and rear window channels painted so that we can get the glass put in the car. My job for Monday, Tuesday is to get the radiator and fans on it. And then we got to put the brake system in, which all the brakes and everything are mounted. We just have to route lines. And then we're going to be able to take this thing on a little drive right next door to the dyno. It's behind that wall if you didn't know. But that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks again for watching. I'm going to keep bringing you guys along for this adventure, for the thrash to get this thing ready for LS Fest. We'll see you guys next time.